Hello again. Good evening. Most grateful you joined us on Talking Point. Talking Point is live on GTV, on GBC News, and on Facebook, Ghana Broadcasting Corporation. My name is Morris Ogbete. Most grateful you're doing the watching. And so it's the first day of the month of February, a day after the MPP delegates decisively elected Dr. Bawumia to lead the party into election 2028. That presidential primary was seen as a critical step in the MPP's effort to reorganize, reposition ahead of election 2028 following the party's defeat in the 2024 polls. And so tonight we'll be looking at that whole electoral process, bringing you key highlights of yesterday's event. We'll be bringing you a discussion on the result. We'll be looking at the future of the MPP moving into election 2028 with Dr. Bawumia leading the charge as the flag bearer. My name is Morris Ogbete. In studio for the discussion tonight is Dr. Abdul Jalilu Atiku. He is a lecturer, Political Science Department, University of Ghana. Thank you very much, Doc, for joining us. We also are joined via Zoom. Richard Anyagba is the Director of Communications of the MPP. Thank you very much, Richard, for joining us. We are most grateful. We also joined via Zoom Musa Dankwa, is Executive Director of Global Info Analytics. He has been doing a lot of the predictions, which predictions actually came to pass. So we'll be having a discussion on the NPP 2026 flag bearer primaries. You want to join us with your thoughts, your questions, and your contribution. So we'll start the conversation. We'll go to Zoom. Richard Anyagba is the Director of Communications of the MPP. Richard, once again, good evening to you. So all those who monitored, I mean, even we journalists on the ground say that the process very smooth, very calm, very peaceful. The candidates have graciously accepted the results and thrown their support behind Dr. Bawumia. What will you say the national executives, for that matter, your party, did this time round? So we have such a very orderly primaries.
Well, thank you. Good evening to your viewers and to my co-panelists. I think you and I spoke briefly yesterday, and I asked your own opinion of the process or the election. There's a long period of work, engagement with the campaigns, the 5 campaigns, and engagement with other stakeholders that ensured that we had a successful day like yesterday. It is across the space, it's been referred to as one of the most peaceful elections perhaps in the history of our party. And to that extent, made it very easy for the losing candidates to concede defeat and kind of lighten the mood and enrich our internal democracy. So I think that the consultative nature of the planning and the work of the Presidential Election Committee made it possible for all the aspirants or the campaigns to be agreeable with the outcome. And if you saw, as I agree, in your description earlier, that it was fairly transparent, and the candidates who lost don't have any recourse anywhere but to come to terms with the result as is, to say that they have lost. The party moves on to plan for the main agenda, which is to capture political power in 2028. And so we have a lot of work to do to position ourselves to make our case to the Ghanaian people, to look not only on the challenges we have had in the dying years of Akufo-Addo's government, which are matters that are still subject to debate. We believe firmly that, but for some incidents that happened beyond our control, we would have ended Akufo-Addo's term just 17. But those are conversations that we have had, the impact of COVID and possibly the Russia-Ukraine war, but we are determined to make our case to the Ghanaian people, especially to this government accountable for its promises that it's made to the good people of Ghana in 2024 and the very abysmal delivery that we're seeing from them. That's the work that lay ahead. But yesterday made it easy for us to come together as a party to begin the process of putting ourselves in shape for the 2028 elections.
Talking about making a case to the Ghanaian people moving into the 2028 elections, what exactly is going to be that case your party is going to be making to the Ghanaian people?
Well, a number of things that will be done, but across the space. Today, if you talk about the NPP's era under President Akufo-Addo, most people focus, and I dare add you to that, just because you're also a Ghanaian. When people discuss Akufo-Addo's era, they tend to focus on the dying years, the last 2 years, or perhaps the last 3 years, 2022, 23, and especially with the challenges that we faced with the economy in 2022, inflation rising to a 54.1 high, the cedi depreciating very sharply, leading to us going to the IMF and all the painful policy decisions that had to be made, particularly the domestic debt exchange program, even though there's an external component of it which saved us a great deal. The internal debt restructuring had been a very painful but necessary decision, because that was the only way out to be able to put together a program for the IMF's support. And often when we talk about the domestic debt exchange program, the difficulty with that, and perhaps we don't mention often, is that in order for us to access the external component of it, you have to do the domestic one. And the expectation was that you have to approach the domestic restructuring with the same toughness or more or less strictness that you would expect your external debtors, creditors to accept. And so when you're doing the domestic one, the external creditors are watching. So in other words, they're expecting to see that the way you treated the domestic debt in terms of the restructuring would be the same way. So you can't treat the domestic creditors with kid gloves and then you show up and then begin to demand unreasonable or demand certain level of concessions from the external creditors. So that's really made it difficult and punitive for many, many people, businesses and investors, I should just say broadly, in terms of the debt exchange program domestically
Richard, if you can briefly just state the case that you're going to be making because of time, so we're able to make progress. There's a lot more to be discussed, really. So what's the case? That the MPP are better managers of the economy?
No. The case is quite simply that we incur the wrath of the people of Ghana as a result of some of the policy decisions we made. And we believe that the domestic debt exchange program is a critical part of that. And so our case will be to Ghanaians that, look, these were necessary, difficult decisions that we have had to take, and we didn't take them lightly. And going forward, we're going to ensure that we don't get ourselves to this difficult place again. In fact, that would contrast with our goal to hold the government accountable, because what it is that all the structures that we put in place to ensure that we never get back to that place again, some of those efforts are being undone by the NDC. So that will be part of our case as well. One, indicating and clarifying for Ghanaians that what happened and the difficulties we have had to go through earlier were not matters of mismanagement or matters resulting from lack of commitment to the job, but it was inevitable, difficult environmental factors that came together, conspired, and caused our the environment we left, or the difficulty Ghanaians have had to go through under us. And however, before we left office, we put the economy in a good shape. Economy that grew 5.7, all the macroeconomic indicators were looking upwards. That was the economy we left, so that we'd never get back to the bitter days of 2022 and early 2023. But somehow the NDC is undermining that gain. And that's the case we're going to make to Ghanaians and present to them our forward-looking alternative ideas that would ensure that if the New Patriotic Party wins, we're going to take Ghana from where we are in all the difficulties that the NDC have begun to put on our ways to get us to better days as we started in 2017, 18, and 19. In fact, I just need to remind you this, and you can confirm this, that in 2019, Ghana both was rated as the fastest growing economy, one of the fastest growing economy in the world. Ghana in 2019 beat Nigeria, a much bigger country, a much bigger economy than ours, to foreign direct investment. And also in 2019, our currency was ranked as one of the high performing currencies in the world. So in 2019, everything was looking good. 17, 18, 19, things were looking good. And if COVID had not occurred, I guarantee you that that trajectory continued. So that's the case we're going to make and try to push the early years of our party's performance in government and the difficulties we faced in 2022, and let Ghanaians know that we have what it takes to run the economy better than the National Democratic Congress.
So Richard, I'll be coming back to you on the way forward now that the primary is behind your party. Is Dr. Bawumia able to unite the party, close the ranks, and move into election 2028? But before that, let me come to the studio. Dr. Jalilu, he is a political scientist. Doc, so certainly you were monitoring the whole process yesterday. Your personal observations, what will you say were the key highlights for you from the morning when the whole process began, or even maybe the campaign process itself?
Right, thank you very much, Maurice, and good evening to the viewers. Right, I think what I would say is that, I mean, the process was free, it was fair, right? There were no major incidents as we often experience during some of these delegate conferences, right, or congresses. But it's also because now, because it has been decentralized, right? Unlike in the past where maybe a few people will be brought to one center, right, to come and then elect a flag bearer, right? And that is where a lot of things, I mean, go on and all that. So I think even the fact that they have been able to decentralize it and also expanded the electoral base, I think that is a pass. And I have always said that I'm looking forward to a point where political parties will allow every member of their parties to vote in that elections. And I think it is in this regard that some of the senior citizens of this country,
Professor Frimpong
Boateng, and then, at the Supreme Court challenging that. Even I'm even expecting that. I mean, it shouldn't even be like maybe going to the Supreme Court to do that. I think that parties on their own if they are able to do that, because if you have your electoral base, people pay dues and all that, you just give them that opportunity. And it also helps to reduce, the monetization of our elections. So I think that these were very positive, right? And then, but the lead up to the election yesterday, right? So I think that, moving forward, maybe in future, they need to look at some of especially the MPP. Sometimes I think they have to crack the whip, right? Because the campaigns were very acrimonious, mudslinging, insult, denigration. Because if you put 5 people that, one of them should be the president of the Republic of Ghana, and then you go about insulting, those candidates, denigrating them, at the end of the day, only one person will emerge. How are you going to present this person to the general population to vote for, right?
But that process really must also take place. That process where within the party, people share their thoughts and ideas must take place.
That is very, very important.
Sure.
That's what I'm saying. But I'm talking about the aspect where, the insult and everything that when, you can compete with ideas, not who is able to insult. Because at least we have witnessed the MPP in the past, maybe in the 1990s, right? During the period of Albert Dubois, the Daroches, Lajete, J.H. Mensah, Kufuor, and others. So at that time, it was like, putting ideas in front, and then you discuss. So within that, even if you have competition, it's about competition of ideas who will be a better decision, but not the type of insults that we see today. And some of even people seeking, to lead the country are also, culpable, or they have engaged in all this. So it's like...
Do you think that will affect the MPP in any way, moving into the
No,
general
definitely, because if you make certain uncivil remarks about your own, your own leaders, right? Maybe this leader is this leader is that. You are creating something in the minds of people, right? This person is not, a best candidate or some sort. So that's what I'm saying, that, in future, I think that if parties will be able to, to address, so that from the word go, you roll out, your guidelines, all right? And these are some of this, and then so that you apply some sanctions, right? Now, apart from this flag bearership election, there's going to be the national party election and all that, right? So if you are not able to address some of these issues, then it means that it is going to continue. Right. And at the end of the day, the issue is that having, gone through all this, now you have someone elected. How are you going to look into each other's face? Let us come together.
We saw how yesterday night all the candidates, came to that victory speech event, openly declared their support for Dr. Bawumia, conceding defeat.
That is
very effortless.
That is the cameras, which is good. I'm not saying that it is no good, right? Which is good. But the point is that sometimes they even come. They signed a pact before the election. Sure. Right, and then so they signed that, and just after the signing of the pact, we heard what happened. Right, some people were even some of the council were saying that it was even unnecessary to go and visit down there and then sign those pacts. Right, so those things are there. But the point is that if you leave certain marks that are, certain marks, right, especially as regarding the insult and all that, it creates certain dissent, and that is why, in my view, I think that the party needs to do, very serious reconciliation beyond the cameras that, oh yes, they have considered. The point is that once the process is fair, right, the process was fair, and then you competed and you lost. So you can't complain, right? So that one, will you say that you are not going to accept the results? Okay, so definitely you have to accept it. But the point is that beyond that, because I'm saying this matter is very, very critical, because it affected, or it's been affecting the party over the years, especially after the 2016 elections.
And Dr. Bawumia yesterday in his victory speech called for discipline.
So
that he will work with the national executives to ensure that there is order in the party.
So why is he saying this, right? It's because of some of these issues. And indeed, they have to, and that's exactly what I'm saying. They have to work on this. If you look at the party over the years, especially after the 2016 election, 2020 election, across the country, several constituencies, these tensions, divisions became very difficult. So even in 2020 election, you can go to a place and then party members will be preaching that, okay, when it's a presidential, you can vote for Nana Akufo-Addo. But for parliamentary, you can vote for any other candidate because they were so divided. You find the PC and some other members here. Maybe you find the party chairman or the party secretary somewhere. So in 2020, so it was therefore not surprising when the MPP moved from 169 seats to 137. And from there, I didn't see any serious reconciliation trying to rebuild beyond what we see, on the cameras, like they have conceded, they are going to be part. Right, so their failure to do that has affected, the party. So from 137, this is where 88 seats. So I think that there is something serious that the party needs to look at.
All right, let me bring Musa Dankwa to the conversation. He's the man of the moment. Congratulations to you, Musa Dankwa. Your predictions came to pass, even though a slight deviation from those predictions that you made. So we want to say congratulations to you. But were there any surprises to yourself, even though you've been monitoring this whole process ever since the campaign started?
Look, when you look at the polling data that we put out there, remember our field work completed on 23rd, and there were about maybe few days, 8 days or so before the elections. So we had a view of what was happening till 27th. Unfortunately, there was an incident that happened on 19th or so that traveled beyond our polling period. So if you look at the data we put out there, we give Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia 57%. And we give Kennedy Agyapong 28%. And then Brian Acheampong 13%. Eddie Chum around 2%. But then our margin of error was plus or minus 3%. Now, why did Brian move from the headline poll of 6 to around 13%? Because we saw the turbulence in the polling data from Tuesday, I think 19th or 20th, when it became clear that Kennedy was losing ground to Brian. Now, we saw part of the turbulence until Friday, 23rd, but beyond that, we couldn't see because we were not in the field. And what happened really was that Kennedy bled a lot more in the last week of the campaign than we had anticipated. So you realize that while DMB numbers hold steady or held steady, Brian and Kennedy traded votes, and that's where the blind spot came. But overall, if you look at the result, Brian was the only one who performed extremely outside the margin of error, plus 2.5% more. So if you have 13% as the projections, plus or minus 3%, that would have taken Brian to 16%. He did about 18.5. So he did 2.5% outside the margin of error. Whereas Kennedy performance was, I think, 1.5 outside the margin of error. I mean, he did worse than we anticipated, and Brian did extremely well than anticipated. But Bawumia's numbers held steady throughout. And the surprise I got, the shock was the performance of Brian in the voter region. That was completely on our blind side. We didn't see it coming, but it happened. And again, in polling, there's always what we call the outlier, and voter region was an outlier.
What would you say caused the Ken bleeding in the dying embers of the campaign period? You said he bled.
There was a tape that came out on Monday. I don't know what was 19th, let me check the date or so. It was, let me check, I don't get the date right. It was the 19th January. The tape in which he was attacking the vice president as a liar, and on a not some few minutes tape that was really distasteful to many including the delegates. Because we were doing our tracking poll daily for a period of 5 days every week, we saw the reaction immediately after that tape went viral. And suddenly his polling numbers begin to tank on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. It was the reason why the model gave Brian a bit more than anticipated, because we were envisioning that he's going to make gains based on what happened on that Monday. And I think the gains that we thought was going to make, he made a lot more than we thought.
And also in the voter region for Brian, will you say his ability to communicate in the Ewe language did the trick? We saw Ken's stronghold was in the voter region.
He spoke language fluently. This is the first time I'm hearing that. And you know, when you speak people's language and you go to the field and you speak to them in that language, there is connection immediately to that language. And once he's able to do that, I believe that may have been the reason why Kennedy lost ground, because the poll numbers were showing that Kennedy had upper hand, but a good chunk were saying they will not disclose. I believe those who were not disclosing went for Brian, and some of the people who were voting for Kennedy actually in the dying minute left Kennedy and went to Brian.
Will you say the MPP should consider him a running mate to bring the voter votes?
No, obviously, any person who does very well in the polling on the election tends to have numbers. That number could have influence. But you know, when you are appointing running mate, they take into account so many factors. And I believe that we will go scientific by assessing how that person or those options fare across the country and see what impact they will have before the final decision is made. But I think it's in a very strong position to be running mate because of his performance. And also he comes from the southern part of the country where MPP is deemed to have its base from.
And some have said that Dr. Brian was in the race to disrupt the chances of Kennedy Japan. From your polls, is that supported?
Look, I don't think you just go into a race to disrupt. He has an objective. He has an aim. My thought was that he was going to prepare himself for future if he doesn't win this race. And it turned out that, look, he became the show boy of the race. I mean, I said much earlier before the elections that, look, this race will be over. Kennedy will be disappointed. Even Bawumia, who would win, will be disappointed. And the only person who will jubilate and celebrate will be Brian, even though he would not win. And I think that's what we saw. I think his performance is quite remarkable. Now it puts him way beyond thinking of 2032 to maybe thinking of having been a running mate to Bawumia. That gives him a very strong currency, I think.
Right. So yes, Dr. Bawumia won, but he couldn't make the 61% he did in 2023. What is that pointing to? That the effect of the establishment is beginning to wane on his side?
Nobody expected him to do the same level of performance as last time. Anybody who was thinking that was really naive. Because look, in the previous elections, none of the other candidates were stronger than Brian. So you don't throw in Brian in the race and expect Bawumia to do the same level of performance as last time. It doesn't happen in any serious elections. Brian is very strong, and he put everything in there for the race, and he got the good numbers. Now, what I tend to do is to look at the margin between Bawumia and Kennedy, who placed second. In 2023, the gap between Bawumia and Kennedy was 23%. Today, the gap between Kennedy and Bawumia is 33%. And that is a huge margin compared to last time. Even though overall you could say that he lost 4%, but in terms of margin, he's put daylight between him and Kennedy. And that has shattered any argument that Kennedy is a strong force at the moment. I think Brian's presence has destroyed that aura around Kennedy.
What should be the future for Kennedy when it comes to MPP flag bearership?
I think he's done. He's not going to come back again. He's going to be in his probably 70s by the time the next one is due. And look, the Ghanaian voters are moving towards younger leaders. They don't like to be dealing with older people anymore. So once you cross a threshold, I think you are out. I believe he will stay in the party, be a very strong supporter and a financier of the party. And I do hope that he stays in the NPP needs people like Kennedy at some point. But look, everybody has his strength. There are areas you can criticize him on, and there are certain areas you have to give him his flowers. Very strong man for MPP.
So now Dr. Bawumia is leading the MPP. What does it bring to the table moving into election 2028?
I mean, these are questions for political commentators. We try to stick with the numbers. But look, he's bringing with him experience as vice president for the past 8 years. He's done a lot of things in government. He has his pluses, he has his minuses. I mean, you know his records were kind of scrutinized in the last election. And what will happen next time again, the same record will be scrutinized. What defenses is he going to be able to put up for when they come up again? And also, it's going to have to deal with the issue of the economy. If the economy becomes the central issue and people compare the last economy and the current economy, what will be his argument? These are the reality that will hit everybody in this country, and he must be prepared to address them head on.
All right. I mean, you have said that Dr. Bawumia will lose against any candidate that the NDC presents in 2028. I will quickly go to Richard and get and talk to him. I'll get back to you to get that particular response from you. Richard, if you can hear me, maybe you also want to tell us, now Dr. Bawumia is leading your party. What does his candidature bring to the table, leading you into the next elections?
Well, thank you. But before I answer that question about the prospect of Dr. Bawumia's leadership, let me just say a small thing about what Dr. Abdul Jalil said about the party saying that, you know, the nature of the conversation was, I guess, sometimes a bit coarse and that will affect the party. I mean, that's noted. But one thing we have to also note in having this conversation is that, like every human institution, there are fallibilities that are part of making human society work, or any human group or association work. But to look on the brighter side of things, this campaign, while there are instances, the most egregious for me was when you have one of the candidates referred to the vice president as a liar, which is never true. It's more or less falling in the NDC narrative in the past about the vice president. Unfortunately, find a place in our own internal conversation, but the record is clear. And delegates, I agree with Musa Dankwa for the first time that perhaps the delegates felt angry or unhappy about that characterization of the vice president. So I just wanted to make the point that while it's important to point that out, Doc must make the adjustment that it's a human institution. And if you go into it, even in our own society, in our homes, in our family lives, there are imperfections. And so we're all work in progress, and the NPP is no exception. So what we have done, I think we need
his
to
opinions. Richard, those are his opinions, really, Richard. Those are his opinions that he shared.
But we are all sharing our opinion. I'm not saying that he's done anything wrong. I'm just telling you that is his opinion, but I'm trying to say that his opinion must be, colored in a way to appreciate that we're a society and we're not perfect. I'm just trying to make a point. Otherwise, we're all sharing our opinion here. I'm not saying he said anything wrong. But I'm just trying to put it in perspective that what he says must also make adjustment for human fallibility, and that the NPP is not an exception in that regard. On the question of Dr. Bawumia and what it brings to the table, I think and I believe strongly that it gives us the best opportunity to make a step forward towards victory in 2028. In fact, his record is out there, and with good effort around the campaign, trying to put our case fair and square, and having any discussion about the economy, as I just told you, and we all fall into that trap of discussing the last 2 years of Akufo-Addo's government and seeing that and say, because of that, we have performed badly. But the earlier years of Akufo-Addo government has been perfect, that are claimed, and the record speaks for itself. So the challenges that we've had, there's going to be occasion for us, as I said, make our case. But Dr. Bawumia presents us the best opportunity to win power. In fact, following yesterday, if you're paying attention, which I know you do, the NDC space is troubled, where now people are listing which one of the candidates from the NDC, they settle on one, can do well against Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. He's now become a household name. He's been in the political space for almost over a decade now. And so he's known. As we speak now across the country, his billboards are still there. Every corner you pass, you see people wearing his T-shirt. So he's known. What he can do is known. What he did, part of the Akufo-Addo government, is known. So I think that our delegates made a very, very good choice. They upheld the history of our party, and I think that it portends a very good prospect for the party to win power in 2028.
Is he able quickly to unite the party and move forward? Quickly unite the party.
Certainly. I mean, you saw the unity of the party begin yesterday, following the freeness, the fairness, and the transparent nature of the election, and so therefore the process of unifying the party has started. He himself is an open door person, and so accessing him and engaging him is not a difficult thing. And so he's not one who repels, and so therefore naturally he will attract people. And by that attribute, I think that he will be able to bring us all together. The New Patriotic Party, we don't have any distraction at this point. Our only focus is how we win power in 2028 to get back to the agenda of building Ghana sustainably for the long term.
I'm concerned about the breakdown in discipline in your party. And so he has said that in the days ahead, together with the national executives, is going to be working to ensure that order is returned to the party. Exactly how has this phenomenon affected your party, even as you prepare going into the elections?
Well, I mean, I don't think there is a widespread breakdown of discipline in the party, and that's the reason why I took a moment to make an input to Doc's conclusion earlier when he talked about the issues in the campaign. But the point is that in every human society, there are such matters to deal with, and so every day is occasion to unite, to build together between husband and wife, father and son, mother and daughter. It's there. It's just human nature to actually work to be the best of ourselves than we were yesterday. So in terms of unifying and dealing with the matters of discipline in our party, I think that is work in progress. But it is clear to all of us that our objective to go to our constitution is to win political power. And at this present time, everyone is going to be focused on dealing or attending to that objective. So I believe that discipline naturally will restore, and people will see the bigger picture and focus to work towards that.
Richard, you want to continue to stay with us? Let me come back to Dr. Jalilu, maybe some response to what those concerns that he's raised.
All right. Oh, yeah. I think Richard is right. Right. Definitely. I think that they have actually elected the best among the candidates. There's no doubt about that, right? Because if you look at, them, and I think that the delegates are always, they actually know whatever they will do. even though people normally say that fear delegates. No, right? You go to them, they will listen to you, and then they will do whatever is necessary. So if you look at, the results yesterday, it re-established, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia's dominance and popularity within the party. So strong delegate, support. Because if you look at the 2023 election, right, even though you can see about some 5 percentage point drop, okay,
Sure.
from 61 to about 56.48, right? That's about 5%, okay. The fact is that if you look at the previous election, the other two candidates did not perform, Adai Nimo and then Dr. Afriya Akoto, right? So it was like a two-horse race, okay. But if you look at yesterday's election, then you have another stronger candidate. That is Brian Achampo, right? So Brian Achampo had about 36 something, right? 36,303 votes or so. Okay, and that's about 18.53%. So if you look at the results, so that is, you can explain that maybe, so you can't take that factor out, right? But certainly, I remember Musa Dankwa was talking about the fact that maybe if people, think that maybe because of the baggage or the previous government's issues that they face with the economy and all that, certainly you can't discount that, okay? Because if you, around the time, there were some people who believed that during the campaign, who believed that if you vote for Bawumia again, it means that Bawumia is going to be, because he's been a key person in that government, so all those debt, exchange programs, Richard talked about, and all other economic issues, you cannot take him out from it. So certainly some people believe that maybe he will not be the right candidate for them, and therefore decide to vote otherwise. It could be that they have given, maybe some of those people also give their support to Brian Achampo or maybe Kennedy. So we can't, Brian's performance shows that he was a very stronger, he was also very strong. If you look at the previous election, Rabbi, you can't completely discount that is this. And so, and I think that, Dr. Bawumia's election, there was this elite endorsement. I think it also inured to his benefit.
If you look at the party headquarters, where we had executives from the diaspora.
The executive,
former former ministers.
Ministers and all that, exactly. The members of parliament, right? Majority of them. Even though there were a few of them who supported the other camps like Sticker and Kubat, you can see majority of them, members of parliament in this supported. And so if you have such a number of people, so, and if you look at his victory cuts across the entire nation, just like he did in the previous election. The previous election, he won 14 out of 16 regions, right? Only Central region and then the Volta region, right? But this time round, I think he even performed, the previous election, Kennedy won in the Volta region. Sure. But this time, it appears, I think Bawumia did better than Kennedy, and then Brian won the Volta region, right? So you can see that, so if you look at this, so even in Volta region where this time Brian, he didn't win like the previous one, but his performance was a bit decent. So I think that national appeal is something that is good for them moving into the next election.
What will be his chances in the next election around the economy? If the Ghanaian economy continues the momentum it's begun, how does that affect
Maurice,
him?
The stark reality is that MPP will have a very difficult election to prosecute in 2028.
Right.
It's going to be difficult. It's not going to be easy. That's the reality, right?
Even when the NDC is bringing a fresh candidate.
It is. You look at there are certain factors. One, okay, this is a party. The NPP was just voted out. And that loss was massive, right? Because if you look at the NDC, even from Mills even had a second. It was a runoff that Mills won by 50.23. Then President John Mahama had 50.7%. But this time around 2024, it's about almost 57% That's very huge. right? So the economic conditions, right, the hardships and all that. So people, I mean, voters were very clear on that, okay? So the point is that, I mean, looking at whatever is happening, we do not know what will happen in the next 2-3 years with the management of the economy. Yeah. But the point is that Ghanaians have given the MPP 8 good years, right? And at the end of the day, they know, I mean, and they have given their verdict. So the issue is that will Ghanaians change completely within these 4 years to go back for the MPP? It's a very major factor. So it's going to play out in the next election, especially when you have Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia again on the ticket.
Right.
And also how NDC, if you look at the indicators now, right? I think that even though I know Richard was trying to listen, but the stark reality is that macroeconomic indicators now were better than the period the NDC.
Some have said that governments perform well in their first 2-3 years.
No, but sometimes you look at, it's not listen, but if you look at the difference, if you want to do detailed comparison, I think that especially sustaining this for about 10 months, all right? So let's even grant it that government do that. If it continues in the second year and then the third year, do you think that, Ghanaians will make a U-turn, a sharp U-turn? So that's why I said that it's going to be, that doesn't mean that it's going to be just an easy election for the NDC. Yeah. All right. And I believe they are also mindful. And that is why if you look at their current issue about having the party structure, right? If you want to be, to be an executive member, then you must listen. So it means that they want the government to be focused and deliver. And as a party, they want to build a very strong party. So it's not going to be an easy election.
That's even causing some internal wrangling here and there. But definitely. That's for another conversation. But let me quickly go back to Musa Danquah. So, Mr. Danquah, you have said that Dr. Bawumia would lose against any candidates that the NDC presents. Jenana Opoku-Agyeman, Julius Zebra, any of them, Haruna Iddrisu. He's going to lose.
Right, thank you very much. You see, when we talk about polls, we should be very careful how we stretch or how we interpret it. First, we ran what we call scenario polling because NDC doesn't have a candidate and MPP didn't have a candidate at the time. That was in the December poll. We just asked them scenarios. If MPP elects Bawumia, and he comes face to face with Atufosun, who would you vote for? And they told us. And if MPP presents Bawumia and Bawumia comes face to face with Atufosun, how does it look like? Bawumia against Haruna Iddrisu, Bawumia against Asiedu Nketia, and Bawumia against Julius Zebra. At the time, they were the top 4 NDC candidates who were doing 10%. Now, the poll shows that if it is Atufosun against Bawumia, Atufosun goes around 58%, and Bawumia goes around 38%. If you throw in Haruna Iddrisu, he goes to 56%, and Bawumia goes to 40%. If you throw in Asiedu Nketia, he goes to around 53%, and Bawumia goes to 45%. And if you throw in Julius Zebra, he goes to around 50%, and Bawumia goes to nearly 47% or thereabout. So depending upon what NDC brings, the race would differ. At the moment, the top candidates that are performing extremely better against Bawumia are Haruna Iddrisu and Atufosun. And indeed, once the decisions are made by the parties and the flag bearers are known, other factors come to play and the race will begin to unfold. So we have more time to track this data. And once NDC have their candidates selected, they will be head-to-head with other potential candidates. And we'll see how that one look going forward.
It doesn't matter how the economy performs, how the NDC governs the country in the next 4 years. He loses against any candidate that is presented.
The poll was taken last year. They were taking into account, they were considering what the economy looks like at the time. If in 2 years' time NDC has tanked the economy, those numbers will not be the same. So you can't say regardless of the economy. No, the feeling they use to assess how they will vote, probably if those conditions exist in the next 3-4 years, then certainly you'll see some of the outcome like that. But if those feelings were different, then you don't expect to see the same data. No, it will evolve.
Right, so we begin to wrap up. I mean, I follow you on Facebook. You received a lot of backlash, but now Ghanaians are beginning to trust and believe in your polls. What's next for Global Info Analytics?
The immediate next is Ayawaso East. I will be going to Ayawaso East very soon to see what's going to happen there. But that is a very small part of the job. I mean, going forward, we're going to be continuing with our national tracking poll, which comes off every 90 days. So the first for 2026 will be early April, where we'll publish the national tracking poll for April. In that poll, we're going to be taking the top 4 NDC candidates as at the last time against Bawumia now, because he's now been selected. And the top 4 for NDC as at the December poll, again, Atufosin, Haruna Idrisu, Asedin Kita, but this time, Jinana is top 4, and Julius Debra is out of the top 4.
Do you think your polls shape the decisions of voters ahead of any election?
It helps them to decide. It opens the discussion. They're able to see transparently who are the leading candidates and what are the issues. Now they're having discussion in their homes, they're having debate, and they're able to compare A and B and C. So they become well informed. It broadens the ability of the voter to engage and make decisions. The polls are not meant to influence anybody. It brings the issues out and people discuss it. That is why you don't see 100% voting for somebody, but people split along their beliefs. I don't think the poll changed overall the outcome of any election.
Grateful you join us. Let me quickly go to Richard Anyagba, who's the Director of Communications of the MPP. Richard, maybe you want to respond to Musa Dankwa's poll. He's saying that regardless of which candidates the NDC will present, your candidate is likely to lose the elections in 2028.
Well, I think, to be fair to Musa, he admitted that this poll is taken out of context, and so therefore is speculative and wishful. To the extent that the NDC doesn't have a candidate now, the environment people are making that decision in is present. The future environment has its own dynamics and impact is going to have on people's feelings, their choices, and the decisions they will make in the election 2028. So we are so far away. Any projections now were just the best way I can put it is wishful at best and speculative. But I think that polling has a place. I have my own reservations about Musa Dankwa, so I won't go into that. But I think that to the extent you ask him the question, I think his answer is appropriate, that people are answering the questions in the present term. And so therefore, tomorrow's environment may influence them to think otherwise. But it's one thing that I can tell you, that the 2028 election is not going to be one of those elections that says that, well, the NDC needed one more, or the candidate in office not being the same person, President Mahama, not being the same person. The conversation or the narrative about we need a second term to complete what we started will not apply. So it is possible that 2028 is a terminal election for the NDC, given that they are swapping a candidate, and that would inure to the benefit of the New Patriotic Party. I think that this is a novel election we're going to go to in 2028. The factors at play rather different. Is a context we have not been in before. And so I am very positive, given the relative publicity and marketing that Vice President Mahmoud Bawumia has enjoyed over the period. his track record and the things that Ghanaians know that they touch and feel and experience on a daily basis that are his enterprise, I think that people would be more amenable to wanting to select as the candidate for president in
All right, thank you very much.
And so that for me is good for the New Patriotic Party. But for now, the polls, as you referred to, is too far off, and we can't use that to make any decisions today.
Thank you very much, Richard Anyagba. He's the Director of Communications of the MPP. Doc, your final words, very brief because of time. So
all right, okay. So, well, what I would say is that I think for the MPP, they have to, now that they have a candidate, right, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, they have to leverage on, his, the good things that he has done, definitely. And in the past, all those things that were said about him, it means that now they have to, in branding, okay, they need to look at some of those things. And I think he himself made an important point, which was published by, GBC online by Henrietta Afu. Right. He said that, Bawumia, he said that I'm confident that by the grace of God, if we resolve our internal issues and go out to vote, we'll win the next election, right? This was 15th October 2025. And then he was, speaking about the fact that they have lost, about some number of 2 million votes, and therefore, they need to galvanize support and all that. So definitely, so they have to leverage on the good things that he has done. Like I indicated, it's going to be a very tough, very difficult election for the MPP.
Thank you very much. Dr. Abdul Jalilu Atiku is a lecturer, political scientist with the University of Ghana. Thank you very much, Doc, for coming through. Richard Anyagba is the Director of Communications of the MPP, and Musa Dankwa, Executive Director of Global Info Analytics. We've been looking